update to the breaking news we told you earlier about the federal judge denying California's request for an immediate restraining order from the Trump order to have National Guardsmen go to California. That was a rejection of the immediate request for action, but that same judge did set arguments for this Thursday. So a rejection of the immediate request, but not for the request in general. This as protesters take to the streets again this evening, protesting the ongoing ICE raids coming to Los Angeles. There are ICE raids all over the country right now as President Trump tries to round up increasing numbers of undocumented immigrants. We're joined by Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez, the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Conference. That's a group of Hispanic Republican members of Congress. Congressman, good to see you as always. So the members of your conference met today to talk about the situation in California. Can you tell us about what you discussed and whether there were any conclusions?
Yeah, thank you, Jake, for having me. It's pretty simple. We don't want to see, we don't want to see Los Angeles burned to the ground. It's a beautiful city. We also don't want to see that fire spread to other parts of the country. We don't want to see Miami burn. We don't want to see San Antonio burn, Denver, Arizona. We don't want to see that happen. And I think a big part of that is we all need to focus on convicted criminal illegal aliens. If we focus there, and we're not going after the milker of cows who's, in 103-degree weather, going after that guy, and we're going after the convicted criminal, I think we're on the right path. I think you can get a lot of consensus there. If you're going down where, you're just picking up everyone who's here illegally, one, that takes you away from tackling the biggest problem in our country, which in my eyes is the convicted criminal that makes all of us unsafe.
But that's obviously not what President Trump is doing. I mean, they're going after criminals, but they're also going after domestic workers, people that work in agriculture. I saw something earlier today about a raid on a facility in Nebraska. Your colleague, California Republican Congressman David Valadao, posted on social media, quote, "I remain concerned about ongoing ICE operations throughout California and will continue my conversations with the administration, urging them to prioritize the removal of known criminals over the hardworking people who have lived peacefully in the valley for years," unquote. That's basically what you said just now as well. How are you conveying that to the Trump White House? Do you think that a majority of Republicans in the House agree with you? And what do you say to Stephen Miller, who obviously just completely disagrees with your view?
I've had regular conversations with the administration. We'll continue to have regular conversations with the administration. We have to get this right, for a bunch of different reasons. One, the immigration conversation is very difficult. It's very complex. No one's been able to solve it for decades. Totally get that. One of the reasons why President Trump was elected is because of the criminal element. And if we focus on that, it's going to take all hands on deck for us to even get that accomplished. That's one. The other part is, these members on the Hispanic Conference, we're the majority makers. We're the reason why we have the majority in the House. And so I think it's very important that that group remain focused on the criminal illegal aliens. That's the message. A lot of us sit on appropriations. That's where the funding is coming. So I look forward to having continued conversations with the administration to make sure we get this right.
A federal judge has denied the state of California's request to stop Trump from using the California National Guard to keep the peace and keep order during these protests. CNN's Elena Treen is at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where President Trump is speaking. And Elena, that's a big development, the judge denying California's request. Tell us about that, and tell us what the president has been saying in his Fort Bragg speech.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge deal for the president here and his administration. And we heard just moments ago the president saying that he wants to liberate Los Angeles and really attacking Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass for the way that they've been responding to him calling in the National Guard and the Marines to go and try and quell these protests. We're obviously, I'm sure, if he's not alerted about it on stage, we'll soon after be hearing from him directly, I'm sure, lauding that decision from the court. But to go back to some of the criticism we heard, just now I'm hearing him use that nickname for his derogatory nickname for Gavin Newsom. He's repeatedly now brought up Los Angeles, Jake. He's referred to both the governor and the mayor as incompetent. He argues that Los Angeles would be burning if it weren't for him, that he believes that the governor does not have the right to try and push back and criticize the federal government here and his decision to bring troops to Los Angeles to deal with this. And so he is very much leaning in hard to this. He's also been, I think very notably, attacking his predecessor, former President Joe Biden. I would note that we are at Fort Bragg. The majority of people in this crowd are service members who are in uniform. We heard many people in the crowd booing former President Joe Biden when he talked about how the former president changed the name of Fort Bragg to Fort Liberty, before he changed it back. He also made some news up on stage behind me saying that he would be changing the names of several other bases that were renamed because of them being in named after Confederate generals. He said he's going to be changing it back to that, considering, for one example, Robert E. Lee. So lots of news up here, a lot of attacks. This has been a very critical speech, Jake.
Yeah, Elena Trine in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Thanks so much. Just a point of fact. The names were changed of these bases named after Confederate generals by law, and what Secretary of Defense Hegseth has done to get around that is to name them by other people. So that's Fort Bragg, but it's not named after Braxton Bragg, the Confederate general. It's named after Army Private Roland Bragg, a World War II hero. It's kind of like a sneaky way to get back to the old name and not violate the law for whatever it's worth. But let's discuss what's going on in Los Angeles with CNN's Jamie Gangel and Alyssa Farah Griffin, former Trump White House communications director during the first term. And Alyssa, this escalation between Trump and Newsom, it's likely only going to heat up. Obviously, a sensible immigration policy has eluded Washington, D.C. for decades now. But also, what we're seeing here is the direct result of Donald Trump and his hardline immigration policies, which are, let's deport every single one of the up to 20 million undocumented immigrants in this country, and Governor Newsom, who has been a fairly progressive, let us provide a welfare state for anybody who needs it in California.
Yeah, listen, this was about the most predictable fight that we could have seen Donald Trump choosing to fight. Gavin Newsom, someone that we talk about as a future presidential candidate. Donald Trump has routinely criticized the way that California is run, the fact that there are sanctuary cities. And I think what I was surprised by is just it did seem like the governor was a bit ill-prepared because, as you mentioned in your monologue, in 2020, Donald Trump wanted to invoke the Insurrection Act. Previous advisors, I was in the meeting when it was discussed, convinced him he didn't need to because federal law enforcement would be able to get the job done of crowd control. And I think what Newsom should have been communicating, and perhaps he was, we know there were two brief conversations, is I can get the job done of bringing back the peace, controlling the streets without bringing in these National Guardsmen and these Marines. So right now, Donald Trump is feeling confident, if not cocky. He thinks that he's playing kind of a winning card here, and he's hoping to bait Democrats, especially Newsom, into stepping in the trap that they did in 2020 of calling for defunding ICE, calling for defunding the police, and even potentially having an altercation, God forbid, with some of these service members. So he thinks this is winning for him, but I would just cautiously warn, this is something that could turn very negative for Donald Trump very quickly. So again, there's all sorts of 2028 implications here, but it's a fight Donald Trump wanted to pick, and he thinks he's winning right now.